Dawgs podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, John Nye, and Josh All.
Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Whoop, whoop. Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Whoop, whoop. Hey, Dog Pack, Browns backers worldwide, and Dog Pound Nation. It is time to kick back, relax, with another Throwback Thursday on the Dawgs podcast. How are you guys doing? I don't know about you, but I know I'm fired up for the Hall of Fame game. It is a Tom Tupa and Austin Davis, and maybe you'll get me now when I say this, a Jacoby Brissett number days away. Yeah, that's right. 7 days. All those guys were number 7. Taking in the festivities, this week in Canton is on my living list. And I mean $200 plus a ticket to go watch some 4th and 5th stringers get after it. It's a little ridiculous, but if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it while our beloved Brownies are in the game. And as you can see, I'm dressed for the part. Can't wait to put this gear on and get to the game. And I'm going to tell you a little about the helmet and chain that I got on right here. Okay, so some different colors, right? Well, as you can see, I picked the wrong one in my travels. As you guys heard, the Browns released an alternative helmet. And while I was in Vegas in April for my daughter's birthday, I think safe to say I picked the wrong one. But after, seeing it and a couple pints of glory on Fremont Street, I was convinced at that time that was going to be the alternative helmet. And I think it's still badass. But I got it anyways, so I'm going to wear it to the game. I like it. Maybe Joe Thomas will sign it. Who knows? But I'm going to take it off right now, and I want to take my sunglasses off because it's hard to see. And let's get back into the show. Also, a quick update. So, Ohio-born Dusty Crum, he engineers another Red Blacks win. And the guy that I'm talking about from Kent State, I mentioned him last week. He's the quarterback for the Red Blacks. He engineered a 43-41 win over the Stampeders. He was awesome again. He was 23-29 for 257 yards, launched 2 TDs while running for 63 yards on 9 tries. Well, thank you, Ohio. Thank you for having that guy play there and bringing him here in some miracle way. Now, I wonder, is he a Browns fan? Does anybody know? Man, this guy, I checked out Grafton, Ohio. It's like 33 miles from Cleveland Stadium. So, hey, Dustin, if you want to hang out with me and my crew of backers down in Mulligan's, we're at 201 Queen Street. Man, that'd be awesome if he did, but, a boy can dream. But let's get back after it. I'm pumped to bring you guys, the diehard dogs that you are, another player from the past. Maybe. But before we get started, be sure to check out the Dawgs podcast on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Be sure to like this video, drop a comment in the comments section, and let us know how we think. You guys all know how I got started, leaving voicemails on the podcast website. Super easy. www.thedawgspodcast.com, and you spell dogs, W-A-G, W-A-D-A-W-G, if I can get that right. Do you guys remember how to leave a voicemail? Because this one's for Sashi Bernard, 6947, who was kind of saying in one of the comments, they need a little bit more nerve to leave a message. Well, you can do it. Super easy. Hit that send voice icon in the top of the website page. Then you hit start recording, and I'll coach you on one. You say, hey, Dog Pack, it's Sashi Bernard from any state, USA, and I want to hear the Dawgs podcast. Let's kick this party off. Just practice that one a couple times, and if you don't like it, hit reset and try again. So, let's take a look at the rest of the comments for the week. We got 2 from YouTube. So, next up is Sashi Bernard, 6749. Love these throwbacks. Became a Browns fan after Red Right 88. Met the Browns players the year after in the practices at Kent State. Hey, Kent State, that's where Dustin Crum's from, man. That's awesome. First player to autograph, guess who? Clay Matthews. Special place in my heart. Hey, listen, Sashi Bernard, I love Clay Matthews. He's one of the only guys that I really like that I don't have an autograph yet. So, Clay, if you're listening, you can send one up to Ottawa to me, but I'll be looking for one at some point. The next one is Kathy Sedek. Let me see this, 63-64. I love Clay Matthews. I hated the trade. Clay Matthews is the backbone of our defense. He sure was. He played so many years for us. He always made a big play here and there, but he was also selfless and kept his teammates into positions to make those plays as well. And you know what? I think he was just let go. I'm not sure he was traded. I'll have to check that one up again. And then last but not least, on Messenger, Mike Smolikic from the Toronto Browns backers. He does all their media and social media, that is. Says, good work on the podcast. Just watched it. Go Browns. He's also posting it on the Toronto Browns backers site. I met him last time we were at a Indians Toronto game in Toronto. He did all the pictures and all the posted all the social on their website. It was awesome. He does a spectacular job. So thanks so much, Mike. So this week, I want to change it up. I'm looking through social to gauge how excited Browns fans are about particular areas on the team. So you got to bear with me on this because it's kind of roundabout. The Dawgs put out some social on Nick Chubb, and it went something like this. I believe I saw it on Twitter. It might have been Instagram. Nick Chubb is the number 1 ranked running back in the NFL per ESPN, as voted on by executives, coaches, scouts, and players. Is it just us, or does it feel like Nick Chubb is about to have a historical season? And then they went over a couple of reasons. Stump Mitchell saying in one of their episodes, the 6 yards average, 6 yards per carry average. And Chubb is expected to be more involved in the passing game, so more combined yards. The Browns have one of the best offensive lines in football, and early indications are that Sean Watson is returning to Pro Bowl form. So those are all awesome points. To which I retorted, though, the receivers need to catch the ball and soften the D. We just couldn't stretch the field last year, which was frustrating. So it ganged up on Nick. And the D needs to get off the damn field. So Nick and heck, the entire O-line can get more shots on net, as they say up here in hockey land. So it got me to thinking. I was like, who isn't excited about seeing what Jim Schwartz can do with this line? Which led me to say this to myself. Well, what were the best Browns lines ever, defensive lines ever? So this week, I'm going to pick the 3 best lines of my lifetime. So that's going to be somewhere between 85 and now, like games that I actually watched. And I was kind of looking for most sacks per game, but mostly by season and some of the run D stats as well. So overall rushing yards. And I want to shout out to the season leaders in sacks. It was 54, and it was by the 1951 NFL champion Browns. And I was not alive for that one. Also, the single game record for the team is 11 sacks, and that was by the 1984 Browns. Now, they were 3-9, and they did that over the 3-9 Falcons on November 18th. So, 84, don't remember that season either. But in my lifetime, here are the 3 teams that I think were the best lines, and they are in ascending order of sacks. So, the first, or number 3, would be from 3 to 1. So this is the third. The 2021 Browns had 43 sacks, and this team will be fresh in your mind. The 21 season was an anti-complimentary football season, even as the Browns kicked off the year with the heartbreaker to the Chiefs. In this bizarro world game, Nick Chubb had the one fumble that turned the tide of the game, and Anthony Schwartz had his only good game of his career. So what I'm getting at is when the O would play well, the D would not, and vice versa. But that D-line, that consisted of Myles Garrett. And you know I wouldn't do a D-line or best up without the flash. Also consisted of the other D-end, the mercenary, Jadeveon Clowney. The 2 starters inside consisted of the Maliks, McDowell and Jackson. And you know, thanks a lot, Malik. I know you're throwing some shade on the leadership of the Browns, but thanks for that 1.5 sack that year. It didn't do us much, but it did in this game. This team was all defensive end. They accounted for 29 of those 43 sacks. Miles himself crushed 16, which is almost 1 per game. And Clowney added 9. The backups, they chipped in 3 more, while the DTs had 5.5. So thanks, Malik, for that 5.5. The D-line was stout enough against the run, and I found some great stats on this particular crew because it's so recent. They were 12th in the league, and they only allowed 109.2 yards rushing. Now get this, though. The 2 teams ahead of them, so the 12th and 10th ranked run defenses, were at 109.1, so 0.1 difference. So they're practically a top 10 team. I think if they would have, I'm doing the math off the top of my head, and I got a camera in my face, but if they would have stopped 1 yard per game, they probably would have been better off, right? So 17 yards would have been 108, if my math is correct, 0.1. Then in points allowed, they were 14th at 21.8 points per game. Well, the Cowboys, they sat at number 7, and guess what the point differential was? It was 0.7 points. So they could have been, had they maybe stopped 1 more point every game, who knows where they would have been an awesome ranked defense. But as you know, the biggest frustration with Joe Woods is the blitz rate. So if you're blitzing, that doesn't really correlate to the defensive line. However, it does free up a guy and load up another blocker. So maybe one of those guys could have got free. But they blitzed super low at 22%, which was one of the lowest in the league. But the quarterback was hit 106 times, which is in the top 10 of the league. The sack rate was 6.9%, which means the D-line was getting it done because they were hitting the quarterback. Nobody was coming other than them, and the sack rate was high. If they did blitz, maybe the blitzers were getting there too, but you know what I mean. The DBs let this unit down too. They only had 13 interceptions, not even 1 per game. But they had a high number of defense passed. Pass defensed is what I'm trying to say. At 79. So they were just not intercepting the ball or not holding onto the ball when it was in their hands. The main reason to kick off with this team was the Bears game. And that's when the Browns turned their home field into Sac Energy Stadium. How great was it to see Myles Garrett go off for 4.5 of those 9 sacks? Yeah, you remember that Niner day. Justin Fields, it was between his hesitation to throw the ball or maybe not knowing the playbook as well as he could have, or as maybe QBs say, seeing ghosts, coupled with Myles Garrett had a huge advantage over left tackle Jason Peters that day. He was constantly in the backfield. This made for a long day for the Bears overall. The line feasted. Again, Myles, 4.5 sacks, leading the way. Clowney, the mercenary, had 2, while Malik and Tack each chipped in a half sack. That game saw the Browns hold the Bears, and I don't know if you remember this part, to 1 net yard passing. And does anybody remember? I think we counted, or maybe it was said on the Dawgs podcast, Myles had 2 for sure's taken back, so he should have had 6.5 sacks. But the game mirrored the season with the ups and the downs, and as great as the D played, Baker Mayfield threw an awful interception that pass. You guys know what he did. Like a cowboy he is, he went and ran and tackled him, separated his shoulder, and pretty much cost him his career with Cleveland and the respect of his teammates. He should have went out on IR, but who knows what would have happened that season if he did. But guess what? We're in a better spot now.
This episode is sponsored by Omaha Steaks. Browns fans, summer's in full swing, and you know what that means. Temperatures are hot, grills are hot, and the deals are even hotter at Omaha Steaks. Right now, get the Hotter Than Fire package at omahasteaks.com. America's original butcher is heating up the summer with blazing hot deals on mouthwatering grilling favorites, guaranteed to tantalize your taste buds. Go to omahasteaks.com right now Enter code DAWGS, DAWGS, into the search bar, and for a limited time, you can score 32 delicious grilling essentials, including 12 free burgers from Omaha Steaks for just $99.99. You'll get 4 of their world-famous fork tender filet mignons, 4 air-chilled boneless chicken breasts, 4 boneless pork chops, 4 gourmet jumbo franks, and so much more for 62% off the regular price. The Hotter Than Fire Pack is your chance to score unreal savings on unrivaled quality from America's original butcher. Right now, go to omahasteaks.com, use code DAWGS, DAWGS, in the search bar to order today. This exclusive offer is only available for a limited time. You're not going to want to miss this. Get your grilling essentials now for the rest of your summer barbecues. Hurry over to omahasteaks.com, code DAWGS, in the search bar, Hotter Than Fire Pack. Get all 32 grilling items for just $99.99. That includes your 12 free burgers. Remember, omahasteaks.com, code DAWGS, in the search bar.
The next D-line season I witnessed in my lifetime that I really enjoyed, and it was a fun year, was the 89 Browns. It was kind of a weird year, but as we mentioned in other episodes, the Metcalf episode, Clay Matthews, Metcalf had that electric punt return against the Bills, and in the same game of that 89 season in the playoffs, Clay Matthews had that game-saving interception. Also, we mentioned in the Clay Matthews episode, it was the first season they didn't have Marty Schottenheimer. And I'll say for those of you that don't know, part of the reason that year was awesome, and Steelers fans will never forget, and Browns fans always do, there was a massive win over the Steelers to kick off the season in Three Rivers Stadium. And the score, you're not going to believe this, if you guys don't know, it was 51-0 Browns. Yeah, you heard me. I said it, 51-0, 5-1-0. Greatest day of my life. So, new coach Bud Carson was a defensive mastermind who coached some great defensive lines. And actually, pre-89, he was a defensive line coach for the Steelers. He also was a defensive coordinator for the 1991 Philadelphia Eagles. And that boasted Reggie White, Clyde Simmons, and then Jerome Brown, that was an amazing line there. I also had another guy that I can't recall. That year, the Browns did lose Mad Dog Golick, and it's basically the same line without Mad Dog. So I think they had the same number of sacks, but this year they acquired Al Bubba Baker as the sack master that he was. In the middle, they would have the wily veteran, Carl Big Daddy Harrison, and the second-year phenom, Michael Dean Parrott. He was also next to Robert Jackson, who was paired with a promising rookie at the other defensive end position, Andrew Stewart. This was a veteran crew that didn't get fooled and was always ready for game day. They had 45 sacks on the year, and the front four combined for 31. Michael Dean, he led the way with 7.5. And what made them go was first-year coach, and I'm sure you've heard this name before, John Tierlick. He was a 3-time Super Bowl winner. He's considered one of the greatest coaches of all time. And guess who we got to start with? Marty Schottenheimer. Sorry, not Marty Schottenheimer. Bud Carson and the Browns. So why are they my favorite? It's the combo of Big Daddy and Michael Dean Perry. They were hard to run on, but they could push the pocket. It was like having two Delvin Tomlinsons. With all the frenzy over William the Refrigerator Perry, I don't know if you remember him, defensive tackle, played for the Bears in 85. Michael Dean was his brother. He was just as popular in the land. He even had his own burger from McDonald's. It was called the NDP, after his initials. It was only offered in the Cleveland metro area, and it was the largest offering sold by Mickey D's. It was a 3-patty bacon cheeseburger. That sounds delicious, and I hope they bring it back, because I would love to try that. The number one reason that this was my favorite D-line combo was because any group or unit that can hand a whooping to the Steelers 51-0 at Three Rivers is good for me. That D-line that day had 4 sacks. Bubby Brister harassed him for 10 for 22. He only had 84 yards. And he had 3 interceptions that saw a total of 8 turnovers and 3 defensive touchdowns. 2 of those touchdowns went to a linebacker, and he just walked those in. I think Clay Matthews might have been the other one that took a fumble back or returned an interception that day. But it was an amazing game. All right, next up, the early 90s. That was one of my favorite years. And so this was after the bottom fell out of the Marty Schottenheimer teams. So Bud Carson was gone, and the players left over from that team was far and few. So the Browns, again, hired another defensive whiz. He was right-hand man of Bill Parcells, the two-time Super Bowl winning DC, was named Bill Belichick. Being the mastermind that he was, of course he was going to put together a tough physical line. And that team that I loved was the 93 Browns. Now, 92 was very similar. I'll get maybe into it just a little bit. It was really the same defensive line. But this team, the 93 team, they were a 7-9 team like they were previous. And it was Belichick's third run before the 94 playoffs. And if you missed the previous episodes, the Browns were the Hoodies' first offensive experience and experiment. The D was just way ahead of the offense for most of those years. And some of those draft picks from the 1990 and 91 seasons were on the D line, and they were starting to take off. The unit was assembled in the 1991, so the last year of Ernie Accorsi when he was the GM. So Ernie and Marty pretty much assembled most of those late 80s teams. But in his last draft, he had two awesome defensive ends. One was named Anthony Pleasant, and the other was named Rob Burnett. They were the bookends to two awesome defensive tackles. We've already mentioned the Burger Man, Michael Dean Perry. He was still there. The second was a brash, outspoken plug of a man named Jerry Ball. The Browns traded a third-round pick to Detroit for the stout run defender. The duo, shortly in the season, became known as Crush and Rush. Ball was the Crush, and Michael Dean was the Rush. Kind of reminds me of Talladega Nights. And if anyone of you still have that tee, get it on social because I want to see it, man. I wish I could have one of those. We love that stuff. Hashtag, whatever you got to do, Dawgs Podcast, let's see it. Back to Jerry Ball. He consistently played at 330 pounds, which is not very common back then. These two vets, with James Jones as the backup, who also doubled as a fullback on goal line, and then they had one other tackle, and he was drafted with James Jones in the 92 season with Bill Belichick, and get this name, Pio Sangapolatelli. They also drafted a monster defensive end in the second round that year named Dan Footman. I think he had a couple off-field issues, but he ended up being okay with the Browns. These guys could get after the passer, and they racked up 84 sacks as they did the previous year. And there's two games that stand out for me that year. And the first was the Monday night win over the Niners. And it was the Sack Festival in the land. In the second game of the season, though, we'll go over the first one. The Browns faced the Red and Gold on Monday Night Football. Billy B, Bill Belichick, decided that he had the personnel to go from a 4-3, which they played, to a 3-4. Matthews probably went edge / linebacker, but they only got one sack. But the thing is they forced the Niners into 3 interceptions and a fumble, and they ended up getting a 23-13 win. I still think I have the article cut out in my back somewhere here. I should have brought that out for this show. This game was impressive from a D standpoint. On December 5th, 1993, the sack parade that I mentioned earlier was against the Saints. And again, it was 9 freaking sacks. 2.25 a quarter. And just like what we've seen from Belichick in his New England years or wherever he is, if he finds a weakness, he'll expose it. The starting front four were Burnett, Michael Dean Perry, James Jones started that game, and Anthony Pleasant. The defensive ends, Burnett and Pleasant, blew up Saints quarterback Wade Wilson for 4 sacks. The defensive tackles, had one apiece, and the linebackers rounded out the last two to make 9. And of course, Clay Matthews was one of the linebackers. The D-line was one of my fave all-time because Crush and Rush were super fun. Both guys had huge personalities, especially Jerry Ball. I wish he would have played more than one season. The D-ends were also up and coming. And I'd want to say this about Burnett and Pleasant. Who knows what would have happened if we didn't have the pause and Art Modell was a piece of crap. You know, Burnett himself, he lasted 14 years, collected 73 sacks. He won a Super Bowl. I believe it was in Baltimore. Boo. Well, Pleasant, he ended his career with Bill Belichick. And so he got 2 rings in the first 2 Super Bowl wins for Belichick in New England. So to recap, my top 3 defensive lines in my lifetime. So remember, there probably were better ones, but this is in my lifetime. The 2021 Browns, and they highlighted with a big game against the Bears, 4.5 sacks by Miles in one game, and 4.5 by the rest of the defense, and that was 43 for the season. Number 2 was 89, the Bud Carson year. That was a veteran line, and man, 51-0 beating the Steelers. Like, what can be better than that? And not only, they pushed it to the second round of the playoffs. Super awesome. As I mentioned, 93, 92, most of those teams, they were the same players, but the Jerry Ball trade, that made it for me. I was harder to run on those guys, and they had 48 sacks. So it was super awesome. So this is the 6th episode of Throwback Thursday. I want to thank all you guys for listening, watching, and hanging out with us here at the Dog Podcast. Join the Dog Pack. You'll be invited to the Discord. I'll take a little bit of a moment and talk about the Discord. We have a ton of fun 24/7. There's people, like Blake says, all over the world. We got a guy in Spain, got a guy in Scotland. There's more to do than just talk Browns. We're just hanging out, talking about general life. I mean, we got the Smokehouse, Andrew Jackson, and I get into talking about bourbon. There's Guardians threads, Cavs threads, Buckeye threads. There's even card collecting threads. I'm actually going to get on right now and see what's going on here as far as what the guys are talking about right now. So we got The Truth, Senpai. He put out, here's a good. So this is a Throwback Thursday right here. So he sent out the tweet from Quincy Carrier. So teams with the most NFL championships. Guess who number 1 is? So Green Bay Packers with 13. Number 2 would be the Bears with 9. Then, sure you've heard this team before, with 8, tied with the Giants. Most championships in NFL history, Cleveland Browns. That's right. Steelers have 6. Baltimore Ravens have 2. They've got as many as the Canton Bulldogs. So, there you go. You heard it right here. You know what? Pastor Rob, he says the signing of Juice would be sentimental crap. It would take us backwards, not forwards. He's also the type of receiver that we need less, and we want teams that crash down on us because we can't go deep at all. Yeah, that's exactly it. And, you know, that's probably coming back from what happened with Marquise Goodwin. He's got blood clots. So what are they going to do? I think you go for a guy that's got lots of speed and go from there. So check it out, guys. I think you'll really love it. But I had a great time. So thanks for staying in my dog cave with me, and come and join the Discord here. And that's pretty much it, guys. I ran out of stuff to say. So I will see you next week, and go Browns.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dawgs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the Dawgs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedawgspodcast.com.